Okay. So now for the last series of talks before the cocktail this evening, and we begin with Sébastien on the automation of Internet of Things. Sébastien, the stage is yours.
Thanks. Well, hello everybody. Well, I hope you enjoy your cup of coffee. To quickly introduce myself, I'm Sébastien. So I'm a security engineer at OVH. I work in the security team and the abuse department. And well, to give you a quick overview of OVH, we announce around 2.5 million IPs all over the world. That's pretty nice. In this talk, I'm going to explain you a very, very simple workflow we put in place in order to automate the takedown of IoT botnets. Well, the main threat for an ISP is the Ddos attack. Not really ransomware or whatever. Why? Because we deal with network, and if it collapses, actually our business is just down. So, well, all ISPs receive tons of Ddos stats, and thus we have to protect our infrastructure, our customers, from these attacks, and we spend a lot of money in appliances, in network, etc. Actually, the IoT botnets are mostly used for committing Ddos attacks, and sometimes, well, as an ISP, you may host the CNC that hits you. And honestly, that sucks. So, if you know that these herders are the most of the times fraudsters too, and they won't pay your service, you're double fucked. Well, worst, no. You receive abuse reports concerning these services, concerning these guys, and then your reputation is deeply impacted because you are blacklisted by Spamhaus, by some RBL, etc. So this is very, very something we care. A lot of people forget the crucial statement. An hosting provider, actually in France, cannot look at the customer data without any consent. So this is not as easy to prove that someone is committing abuse on your service. So when you think your customers is bad, you have to establish the infringement by gathering evidences. So most of the time, the hoster relies on their abuse system, where they receive tons of abuses, and sometimes tons of noise. Like this screenshot. This is a report for an SSH brute force. Well, nice, but how to be able to check whether the customers has fixed the issue afterwards? We can't. The same way, how to be sure this report has not been sent by someone who wants to tackle his competitor? We can't. And actually, it happens every day. That's the ISP way. Now, what about the IoT botnets? Well, actually, this threat is not really new. It started 10 years ago, and it keeps going. It keeps going with GraphGate QBot, with Mr. Black, Mériot. We talked about Reaper, which is not very something new. It's very close to Mériot. Well, they almost all exploit the same fact is that the manufacturers are coded the credentials in the firmwares, Brilliant ID, and you can change them. Just to quickly recall, these botnets are spreading themselves by peer-to-peer infection. So once a device has been infected, it starts scanning the whole internet randomly, almost randomly, and to find new vulnerable devices. And it will try to log in with default credentials. And if it succeeds, it infects the device by downloading the payload. Well, To be honest, these malwares are very different from the one we could have seen before, in fact, in Windows, for instance. They are damn simple, no obfuscation, no persistence, and whatever. They are keys. Keep it simple and stupid, sometimes very stupid. So as you can see on the screenshot, this is the HTTP flood method, which is quite ridiculous, because as you can see, they just flood using the wget command. Yes. But even if they are basic, they have a real potential to cause harm. And for instance, Mériot made the biggest DDoS attack we have ever seen right now. And actually, one of our customers running a Minecraft server has been targeted in 2016 by a 1 terabit attack. And you can see on this screenshot the recorded attacks we got over 4 days from various botnets. This was in 2016 when actually we reached a peak of 1 terabit. And well, you know what? Actually, we discovered that the CNC has been hosted several times in its whole life cycle by OVH. So we have been hit by a CNC that has been hosted several times on our service. Well, honestly, it has been the starting point to set up the workflow and to take them down automatically, so we don't have to care about them. We made a test a year ago, and we figured out that in 2 days, around 2 days, you can have enough bots to cause harm. So, well, we made the hypothesis that maybe if we succeed to take them down within 3 days, probably we can discourage the herders to use our services. Yeah, let's see if it worked. First, how to detect those CNC. Before coding something by our own, we tried several services. For instance, Shodan. Probably some of you know Shodans. Actually, it scans the whole internet and records every single data in a giant database you can freely query. This is quite reliable. The API is very easy to use, and you have tons of data. So here's a screenshot. Shows the results of a query searching for a variant of QBot. This variant is for banner fat cock. Yeah, that's very lovely. Well, unfortunately, Shodan is scanning the internet very slowly. So we have only a little picture of the existing CNC. So we tried another service, the 360's NetLab, which is a dashboard showing the honeypots data. And this is very interesting for Intel, for instance. There are tons of data, but, well, unfortunately, it's not very convenient for an abuse team. Why? First, because you can't automate anything. Secondly, because, as I told you, we need proof. And actually, this kind of platform does not provide any proof that we can share with the customer. Well, so maybe we have to code something by our own. And so we remember that we previously connected our spam traps directly to our Q2 soundbots. And maybe we can do something similar. Why not using our honeypots and plug them on a sample analysis? Yeah, why not? So maybe we could plug them on the soundbots. But we quickly figured out that soundbots in those malwares will be very complicated because of the exotic architecture like MIPS, IAM, Renegade, Motorola, and everything you want. And if we succeed in recovering an 86 samples, actually it's often compiled for all kernels, like 2.4 or 2.2. And actually, QQ doesn't like instrumentalize those environments. Plus, we have sometimes a big peak of samples to analyze, so sandbots are not very fit. Hopefully, as I told you, they are damn simple. So they are very, very easy to reverse. And for instance, on the screenshot, you can see that I extract the strings, and by applying a simple regular expression, you are able to fetch the CNC address. Well, this is a QBot samples. Actually, QBot is not very challenging, so I'm going to talk about Mériot and focus on Mériot right now. This is the workflow we put in place. Actually, it's a big picture. So the bots, all the internet, are scanning, and sometimes they hit our honeypots. Great. And when Mériot hits an honeypot or hits a device, it will submit a set of commands to test whether you can be a honeypot or not. So it expects from you a very precise answer. To be honest, this is very easy to bypass. So once you answer what is expected, you can get finally the URL to download the samples. And hallelujah, you can start the funny stuff. You can inject the samples in your analysis process, recover the CNC, maybe trying a connection to look whether the CNC is still up, and then send a notification to your abuse. And then the abuse will take an action. Actually, in OVH, we just null root the IP, so it doesn't ping anymore. This is the big picture. Let's get deeper in the sample analysis process. There are three main steps. Actually, I will show you some sensitive data now. First, it may happen that the binary has been patched with UPairits. Well, sometimes it happens. No big deal here, just unpatch it, yes. And maybe you know it, but Mériot has obfuscated strings. So it means you can't recover the CNC as easily as QBot. So you first need to get rid of the obfuscation. Here is the source code of the function of Mériot encrypting and decrypting the strings. And, well, as you can see, this is a simple XOR based on a constant named table key. So that's very easy to recover the strings. To do so, personally, I do it the ugly way by unzoring the entire binary. That's fast, and that's pretty reliable. So on the left, you have the obfuscated binary, and on the right, you have the clean one. And as you can see, that's now very easy to retrieve the CNC. So the string appears, and, well, that's pretty easy to automate. Well, just with this method, we succeed in retrieving 6 out of 10 CNC addresses, just to show you how easy it is. But hopefully, we can do better. Let's improve this. Sometimes, and probably that the headers are too poor to buy a domain name. So they directly hardcode the IP, as shown on this screenshot. Actually, this move is an IP. And so when you look at the string, you don't find anything. So I extract all the constants from the binary to check whether an IP may have been hardcoded. That's very easy to do so. Here is the code in Golang, so you can see that there are around 40 lines of Go. I disassemble the binary with a simple object dump that's very efficient because it's very, very fast. And then I only return the push and move opcodes, which are the best candidates to hold an hard-coded IP. I reconvert the constant this way, and then I just have to check whether this is an IP or not. And if I run the code, here what I get. Well, I fetch, of course, false positives, but with simple heuristics, I am able to find the CNC address, and this within a second. So right now, with this method, we succeed retrieving around 2 CNC out of 10. That's better, but we can really, really improve it. So just let's get back a step behind. Previously, I told you that to answer the binary, I use a default constant. Well, actually, the header sometimes may change this constant. And so you have to find a new way to find this content. To do so, I automated a bit by reverse engineering using the air-to-pipe API. Actually, it's a wrapper for radar, and you can send and submit commands to automate the reverse engineering. Well, 30 lines of Go to recover our other constant. In few words, well, I just disassemble the binary and try to find a very unusual bit shift. And, well, by looking backward, I just now try to look at the move, which contains the table key value. That's pretty easy, actually. And if I run this code on 2 binaries, 2 samples, recent sample, the first one has the default key, as you can see, and the second one has a change one. You also can see that the execution time is a bit high, 40 seconds to recover the constant. That's why I only apply this method when the previous one fails. So right now we are able to recover 9 out of 10 CNC address about Mériot and Qbot and Mr. Black too. If it fails, well, never mind. I just run a dynamic analysis like usual using an old Raspberry if I find an ARM sample. Now, what about the statistics? Here is the abuse report concerning IoT malware received by OVH each month. We put in place the detection system right after the 1 terabit attack in mid-October 2016, and actually we keep improving it yet. As you can see, we had a lot of notification before we put in place the workflow. In 2016, for instance, we got a lot of reports about tsunami and Qbot. When we put in place the workflow, you can see a peak, which is actually the moment where we discovered a lot of CNC we host, and that has never been reported to us. So quickly, we began very reactive to take them down, and we observed that the amount of reports has been drastically reduced. So actually, we can't see it on the graph, but the green average is 5 times smaller than the red ones. So probably that the headers stop hosting their CNC on our network because they know they will be shut very quickly. And actually, here is an abuse report, a screenshot of an abuse report, the workflow submitted. The VPS has been ordered the 30th of November, and the ticket has been created on the 2nd of December. And actually, the 2nd of December is also the date we shut down the IP. So only 3 days after the VPS has been ordered. That's pretty quick. If we look at the discovered CNC, we also reduce the percentage of IoT CNC detected on our network each month. In October and November 2016, actually, we were around 15 or 20% of discovered CNC hosted by OVH. And right now, we are less than 5% of monthly detected CNC. well, actually, if we look at the global trend, we can see that these CNC are probably leaving OVH and host their code on another hoster. So, well, we tend to think that if we are more reactive altogether, all ISP, we may be able to impact their business deeply. Of course, it won't prevent the infection because this is a job of the manufacturers. But basically, we are all a target, and sooner or later, we will be under an attack. On the table below, I just compiled some statistics about the command sent by the various IoT CNC. And, well, actually, this is the ranking of the most targeted ISPs by these botnets. And as you can see, well, OVH is not the only one which is concerned by this threat. So to briefly conclude, I would say that, well, a week ago, we received a Ddos of 240 million packets per second. Just to give you an overview, the 1 terabit attack we got last year was around 100 million packets per second. So the threat is still present. And, well, even if these malware are incredibly simple, they stay harmful. Hopefully, that kind of abuse can be very easily remediated for an hosting provider. And I tend to think that that kind of workflow is quite a good example of what can be done to constrain the threat. Well, unfortunately, I can't release the source code on GitHub. I think you can understand why. But I will be very pleased to share it with you if you're interested to implement this method on your network. I mentioned a bit how hard it is to manage abuse. And actually, Frandoni gave a talk at the BotConf 2 years ago, and it described very well the difficulties we are facing. Well, actually, it raises several points. And the most important, in my opinion, is, well, how to share abuse between trusted people. We discuss a lot about sharing intelligence, but actually, intelligence and abuse are pretty different because for abuse, we really need evidences. So there are nowadays some Slack, Twitter, etc., but nothing really standardized. And, well, maybe it could be something interesting to reflect on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sébastien. Are there any questions in the assistance? No? Oh, there is one there.
Hi, thanks for your talk. I was wondering about the technique you showed with searching for all numeric constants in the samples and treating them as IP addresses. Wouldn't there be some very elevated false positive rate?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Well, I meant when you look for numeric constants in malware samples and treat them as IP addresses and see if they resolve, aren't you going to have a lot of false positives, just statistically? Actually,
not really, because I apply some heuristics, as I told you, and I remove very, very weird constant that couldn't be an IP, like 0x, FFFF, etc. So it decreases the amount of candidates. And for each sample, I maybe retrieve around 5 false positives, but which are put away because of the heuristics. We also see the DNS of Google, etc. So that's pretty easy to implement. And it works not only for Mirai, but for Mr. Black and other sort of malwares.
Thanks. We have time for one other question, if you have one. No? Okay. Thanks again, Sébastien.